Okay, so we are back with the wonderfully wise Dr. Robert Sands with his decades of experience in psychiatry. He's a medical doctor, as I've already said, and he's spent so much time helping children, adolescents, and adults with their psychiatric, focus and where they were at. And we've just had a lovely conversation about love and does love conquer all? And is love enough? And the limits of love. We only scratched the surface, and I will get you back and I will take one question and we'll roll with the whole thing. But what it's brought up for me is in my own work and my own kind of holding meditative classes for people and all that kind of stuff and self-development groups and all that. One of the things that always comes up for me, and I personally think it's the way forward for just for humanity, just for everyone. If everyone in the world just took responsibility, yeah, if they took responsibility for what they say and what they do and how they react, and they were fully integrated in themselves, the shadow side, the light, integrated into wholeness. I am always going on about the path to happiness is self-love. And once you love and accept yourself, and you are truly within that lovely sense of contentment within the self, that pours out into the family, the home, the pets, the neighbors, the community, your work, what you do at work, your colleagues. The sense of self-love, if it's full and if it's kind of healthy and balanced, is one of the biggest gifts you can give to the world. Okay. Now, obviously, it's not easy to do. The path of self-love is not easy, especially if you've, what I often say, Bob, and you can tell me if you've experienced this, I'd be really, really interested to know. Meeting people who don't know how to love themselves. They have no idea what that means. What does it mean to love myself? Their parents never maybe demonstrated their own self-love. They don't really understand the concept of self-love. And going on from self-love and responsibility, in your world of psychiatry, do you notice that there's certain psychological situations and conditions that are very much in line with lack of self-responsibility, or not even understanding what it means to be responsible for your actions? And how does that relate to, say, the medical model of medication for psychiatry? Where I think on one hand, it's like just numb it with medication, and obviously it works for a lot of people. And on the other hand, you've got work through it, work through it, work through it, face your demons, face the dark side, face what you've done, face your responsibilities. So I'll hand that over to you. It's a big question.
Well, there's several there. Let's separate self-love from self-responsibility. So self-responsibility is an idealism. And if you look at children, they're not eager. They're not creatures who are excited about being self-responsible. They're full of ways to avoid responsibility. So it's an uphill battle. But it's really the only path if you want to have a good life. And if you avoid self-responsibility, and you can unpack that into quite a discussion of, well, what does it mean to be self-responsible? Well, it means that you don't lie. So if you lie, you're going to suffer a consequence, and you may or may not even realize it. A lot of kids, again, going back to kids, they lie. All kids lie. And then so self-responsibility comes from being held accountable. I think this is where, and then self-love comes from living from virtue. Is that too maybe idealistic? But we want better behavior, not bad behavior. So if you want to move someone, even in a corporate level or an employment level, if you're working with people to improve their behavior, you want to move them along towards doing what they say. You know, self-responsibility is taking responsibility for their emotions, their behavioral situation. And that's a long educational road. It's really life. Life is about attaining that. And people who do pursue it and practice it are rewarded. There's no question about that. They are leaders. They're more mature. They're, they respect. And I would argue that the language of love should include respect, affection, how about like yourself? If you don't like yourself, well, why don't you like yourself?
Yeah, exactly.
Did you absorb negative language? Well, that can be worked with. But if you're behaving in a caring way, the kindness movement is trying to do that. But I think when you get carried away with kindness, you forget that half the world or more is not kind, and you have to deal with them. You just can't sprinkle kindness onto psychopaths and expect them to be grateful. So, I mean, that's off in the weeds a little bit, the whole thing about
No, I like
kindness.
that.
So,
I like that. So let's just clarify that. You can't sprinkle fairy dust of kindness onto psychopaths and it'll work.
well, it's been tried. And the women that go to the prisons to help the psychopaths end up marrying them and getting in relationships and then getting killed. So, you know, this is where too much of one function, and this is where we need to develop our weakest function. There's a generalization for it. If you want to grow, become aware of your weak side and work to strengthen it. Your strong side will always shine. In other words, your natural strength will come out, but your weakness is where you need to do work. And usually that means some self-inventory. But most people aren't interested in this. They're busy, you know, they don't reflect a lot. And so you're trying to speak to people who've come into the fold. They're interested. And those are the people I see. You know, there's an old joke that how many psychiatrists does it take to change a light bulb? Well, the answer is only one, but the light bulb really has to want to be changed. So if you're trying to instill something in people who don't want it, they're not interested. They're not in the market. They don't care. You're selling to somebody who's not buying.
Absolutely.
So you want to pick and join with people with a common interest. And then there's resonance and synergy. Like we're having a synergy of mostly agreement. I mean, we have a similar idealization framework because you speak as an idealist. And there's a whole literature on idealism, and it can be a problem because idealism can prevent you from being realistic.
Absolutely.
And so you want to keep your idealism in your heart. You want to sequester it and bring it out only when it's respected or shared. And then when you go into a dark room and face the lion, you want your realism on your sleeve, not your heart. So
absolutely.
The question of the medications.
Can I just say something before you go on to that? Because I think you've raised something so fundamentally kind of obvious again when you say it. But it is that basic understanding that you need to change, that you want to change. And like you say, people who end up at your practice are people who've already must have done some kind of reflective work to go, something's not right, I'm not kind of right, I'm not fitting in. Or, of course, they get brought along by their parents because the parents think they're not.
Or their spouse.
Yeah. And then it's kind of counterproductive because, it's like people who I always used to like to, listen to people who want to give up smoking. They never wanted to give up smoking. It was everyone around them and they were never going to give up smoking when they loved it so much. Why would they? And then, so you've got people coming to you, and what you just said is so true. You've got half. I always think this about most things. You know, half the world is trying to, you know, kind of look at environmental kind of stuff, and then the other half is still kind of doing stuff to, you know, maybe not do the best. Maybe that's not the best example, but you have got, I tell you an example here in South Africa, and it's kind of quite an interesting thing because, you know, you've got lots of people who are always tidying up, and there's big groups always, you know, litter off the beach and litter off the streets and that kind of stuff, which is really great. And then you go past certain areas and there's just literally piles of litter. And it just makes me think you've got always this kind of polarity of those who want to, you know, idealists want to get all the litter off every beach and every street. And then certain parts of the community, there's literally litter blowing across the streets, literally piles bigger than a person. Just no one gives a stuff. And it's like you're dealing with that in the world all over. Those people who want to be maybe better people, better versions of themselves, and other people who don't give a stuff. And then that's what we're dealing with.
Well, I mean, you've said it realistically that not only is everybody different, but there you can break it into groups, and there's doers and there's lazy people, there's ambitious people. Kids are that way. You can see temperament is a term that researchers look at a child's temperament, and there's like 3 or 4 different basic temperaments that persist throughout life. And it would be sort of agreeableness or drive, ambition. I mean, we don't need to really break them down to get the idea that these energies, energy is another useful concept. So if a person has an energy that gets them off their duff. In fact, I recently encountered a quote from Carl Jung, the famous psychologist, psychoanalyst, whose model of humanity I think is very useful. And he said that laziness was the greatest passion. And I thought, what? Laziness a passion? That's not right.
Wow.
So, but there's a lot of laziness, and we all have laziness, you know, where you don't want to move, and some people are constantly moving. They don't have any laziness. They're always doing. And so you can say, well, that's this group of people. And then there's like you're in the group that has idealism and love, and you want the best for the world, but you're also realistic that the world is not listening to you. Everybody's not running over and saying, can you please say that again? That's so useful. You know, it has to be married in a relationship where there's an energy and an agreement. And that happens in offices. It happens in individuals and groups. I certainly think meetings, large meetings. I don't know, this is a meeting format. People are listening and they're thinking, oh, well, how do I want to have self-love? Then I just need to start behaving in a way. This is my recommendation. Do inventory of how you're living your life and model after somebody you admire and want to be like, and you will start to feel better and better about yourself. You'll start to like yourself. You'll start to respect yourself. And then maybe you can love yourself. You know, learning to love yourself is I don't know if I need to love myself, but I like respecting myself. I mean, that feels good. Maybe is that a form of love?
I would say so.
Respect. So there's a wide world, and unfortunately, culture is not providing a container. It's providing an indulgent container. There seems to be a modern day indulgence. The belief is that everybody should just be able to do what they want and have what they want, which is, of course, the wish fulfillment of every child, is that they want everything. All they want is what they want. It's very basic. It's not complicated. And the job of the world, the educational system, the parents, is to say, no, you need to do this. If you want to be a movie director, you can't just snap your fingers and be a movie director. You have to go through 10,000 steps, and you have to sacrifice, so wish fulfillment and wanting what you want, which is the essence of entitlement and narcissism, is being encouraged by the culture that teaches children that, oh, you should have what you want, or you should be what you want. If you want to be this or that, if you say so, that's what that you should be able to say how people talk to you. You should be able to say that whether you want to be a boy or a girl, you should be able to say that, and everybody should say, oh, okay, go ahead, rather than the culture which says, no, here's reality. We're your teachers. We love you. That's not going to fly. If you do that again, here's what's going to happen. Or with little kids, you say you're going to your room under your own power or under my power. You don't negotiate. It's a very different approach compared to modern, what I would call enabling and indulgent culture that advertises that we should all have everything we want. Dreams should all come true without any work.
And that's very in line with what you said before in that previous section about love is boundaries. It's setting boundaries. It's and it's so true what you say, that this ideal that anyone can be anything. And I remember seeing this with my a generation, with my friends having kids and stuff, and they'd go to university and they think because they go to university and they get some kind of degree that they immediately go into a highfalutin, high-paying job, and they don't have to climb the stairs. Everybody, and half the joy of achieving is climbing those stairs, isn't it? And going through those stations, those rites of passage to go, okay, and it's the same with self-responsibility. You have to go to, in order to respect yourself, that form of liking and loving, you have to go through the uncomfortable steps of acknowledging what you're not doing right, what is unpleasant about you. If several people keep telling you the same thing, you have to go, well, there's got to be something in this. All these people are using this same word, and I have to absorb that and go, okay, this is what people from the outside are seeing, and it's a projection that I want to work on, but that's hard work. And I don't know if in the psychiatry world that hard work is diminished, and there's a shift towards medication into the intervention medication, or do you think it's still balanced? Do you think psychiatry still delves into the depths, and medication is still just there on the periphery, or what?
Well, psychiatry is taking a narrower path than when I was trained in the 1970s, which was very broad, and it included all the therapies and all the ideas about how to understand the human being. Now we're considered subspecialists in diagnosing mental disorders, that some of which benefit from medication. Some of the mental disorders are very mild. They're not what are called major mental illness. The major illnesses really do need medication, because it's fair to think of them as genetic or biologic illnesses that appear in behavior and in emotion, where there's a lot of dysregulation, and where medications can make a huge difference. So I don't mind. I think I have become more and more interested in seeing cases where the medications, if I prescribe them, are appropriate, and really the results are obvious and striking. Sometimes they're unbelievable. People have been in therapy for 10 years, and then they take a medication, and their whole life, they're not numbed or shut down. It actually can accelerate their personal growth, because the disorder has kind of captured their personality and prevented them from full expression. It's like an interference. So if you think of a person and the disorder gets too big, it takes over a person.
Yeah.
And so the medications can, when appropriately used, and they do get overused and they get underused, and there's all this debate about medications preventing growth. And I'm sure that happens, but not under my watch, and most of the people I see are screened by years of seeing other professionals.
Wow.
We're considered the place of last resort. Although sometimes in modern times, it's rather obvious if somebody has really severe depression and they're not functioning, or they're suicidal, or they're bipolar. Probably the most dramatic and easy to help disorder is attention deficit hyperactivity disorder.
Really?
Because it can jump a person to a completely different level. So ADHD people tend to be underachieving. They're distractible. They don't climb the ladder as far as their natural ability would take, because their mind is all over the place, and they have poor discipline, poor habit formation, and they keep doing the same thing over and over again and not learning lessons and so forth. There's a whole kind of constellation of dysfunctional behavior. So that's where psychiatry is good. Psychiatry is great with the more severe mental disorders. The human condition, understanding the human condition doesn't need psychiatry, nor do the psychiatric programs really spend much time looking at ways to understand humanity in a non-biologic way. They're becoming very, very narrow, mechanistic.
Wow.
Everything is molecules, and I'm exaggerating a little, but a lot of my psychiatric colleagues, all they do is talk about what's the disorder and what's the medication. And then if you ask love, they'd say, well, love is a delusional state. It's
really?
Love is there is a view state. That love is like the love is blind, and love is like a delusion. The state. There's
Seriously?
a book written in the 90s called Limerence. Have you heard of limerence?
No.
Limerence is like infatuation. It's a state of mind where you're captured and possessed by the love of your life. And so this woman wrote this book and called it Limerence, because she was trying to say, well, wait a minute, this is too juicy to let go. And so love, language, and that's all for psychology. Psychiatry is supposed to be serious guys with their books and their molecules, and their model is hyper reductionistic and scientific. And
wow.
But obviously I'm a psychiatrist. I respect those tools, but good grief, I mean, life is bigger than molecules.
Absolutely.
Don't you think?
I find that what you just said about love being a delusional state, which is quite shocking, but therefore it's quite interesting where that leaves self-love and self-responsibility, so therefore loving self would be like,
you have to unpack love. You have to unpack it. It's not fair to say love. It's really agape love. The Greeks knew this. Agape love is not a delusion. Agape love is like goodwill, a full heart, generosity, wanting the best for the world, the best for ourselves. It's sort of Christ-like or something like that. It's an idealization. And of course, we disappoint ourselves. This is the problem with shame and disappointment, is that we never live up to this ideal. What?
Don't you think? I mean, I know I kind of touched on this earlier. It's actually quite simple to get to that point. We were talking earlier about it's actually easier than you think to respect yourself, like you say, when you're modeling people who you respect and love, and just stop doing the things you don't like about yourself. I mean, it sounds so ludicrous, but it's actually, stop being like your father, stop being like your mother, stop being like the teacher you never liked, stop being like the friend you don't like, or your not friend who you don't like. Isn't it just so simple? Am I simplifying the whole kind of world of it all?
So it is simple, but how many people follow archaic values that have been around for thousands of years? They're available. They're certainly, some of them are taught in a religious format or a spiritual format. Guidance, you might call it guidance.
Mm.
People are going to do what they want. They're the king. They think they're in charge. I was giving a talk at a high school, and we were talking about communication model, where you make an appointment with your parents, you present your issue, you learn to negotiate, you communicate, you don't interrupt them, and you take turns, all this respectful stuff. And these two girls said, well, we don't want to do that. We just want our way. And I thought, what? This is narcissism on display. These are immature girls that have no interest. Their brains haven't grown enough, and they may by temperament be narcissistic. So all they want is their way. But they said it with such conviction. I didn't know what to say. It's like, well, you guys are going to have a rough life, because
Wow.
that's all. You're not willing to play the game. You're not willing to learn the
Give and take.
rules.
It's give
I'm
and take, isn't it?
I'm get, I told them, I'm giving you gold and silver here. If you use these tools, your life will be so much better. And
Mm.
all you have to say is that you want your way and you're not going to bother. Is that
Totally.
laziness, or is that defiance,
Yeah.
or is that whatever you
Yeah,
can,
yeah, yeah.
whatever it is, there's a lot of it going on.
Yeah,
A
totally.
lot of it.
Wow, there is a lot of it going on. And I see it. I have this thing. I watch politicians and I think, wonder what the motivating factor is for a lot of these politicians. And I wonder, do they literally go into some politics to be truly helpful, again, with a real desire to do some good in the world? Or does it just seem to attract people who want the bonuses, want the expenses, just wants to sit on the bench for 45 years, not really do anything, and just roll around and not actually make one iota of difference in the world? I often think, is that a psychiatric disorder most of these politicians have got? Um, because you do see it.
Well, I mean, I know some politicians, and unfortunately, you lose your soul in politics. If you're a statesman, now a statesman is somebody that says, here's who I am, this is what I believe. If you want to join my team, come on, I appreciate it. But I'm not going to be pandering to all of your interests. So don't come to me like pigs at the trough, trying to get. I think of modern politics is they're pandering to all the pigs at the trough, and the
Yeah.
pigs are all these people wanting, I want this, I want this, get me this, I want this project, I want this subsidy, it's all about getting something
Self. It's
rather
like
than,
childlike, isn't it? Again, it's like those
well,
two
you said it.
girls. It's like those two girls that said, "I just want what I want," and that's the end of it. No negotiation. It's like, okay, where do we go from there then? You've got a whole country you're meant to be, running efficiently, and you are meant to be serving these people. But it does, it's just like, no, I want the lobbyists just want what they want. And and then people just pander to it. They're like bad parents, aren't they? The lobbyists are like really naughty kids, and there's no boundaries of love there. It's kind of, that's why it's all gone horribly wrong.
Well, now, our country was designed with full awareness that these human tendencies were very powerful. And so they designed in a balance of power and a separation of power. And ever since our founding, the work has been to defeat those constitutional inhibitions or protections against the consolidation of power. We're now in a phase where the constitutional protections are weakened, and everybody's kind of smelling blood, and they get their politicians are getting power. Statesmen are seldom seen. Here's an experiment. If I were to speak statesman-like and say, well, I think it's for the good of the country, we need to do this, and I'm sorry you can't get your pet project, do you think I'd be elected in modern times? When the next politician would come along and say, this guy's archaic, I can take care of you, and I can take care of you, and over there, I can take care of you. You vote for me, and I will give.
You get what you want. Okay.
So there are voices objecting to this. There is wisdom in the world, but I don't know if it's going to prevail.
Well, that's a superb place to end this session we've had, Bob. You know, let's hope wisdom does prevail. It's been an absolute joy to talk to you and listen to your fantastic wisdom. Just a quick question. Are you available for psychiatric consultations if people want to get hold of you via Zoom or where you are locally? No, not yet, not at the moment. Okay.
Oh, I really wouldn't want this to lead to a bunch of referrals or requests. I'm really, I'm 76 years old. I'm semi-retired. I work a day a week. I'm taking care of a group of people I've known for years. I occasionally see new people, but I mean, please don't advertise. I do not want any advertising.
Good. Just a question. I know you have a busy schedule on Mount Rainier and skiing and enjoying your life, and you have a very, very excellent work-life balance. So I thought I'd just put the question out there. And okay, so let's wrap it up. And it's been an absolute joy. Thank you so much. And I look forward to our next session where we will be talking about masculine spirituality and divine masculinity, and looking at where that's going in the world and what we can do to enhance and take that out there. So thank you very much, Bob. It's been fantastic. Thank you for sharing yourself in such a wonderful, open and honest way.
All right.
Thank you. We'll see you again soon.
Well, Diane, it's been a fun collaboration. Bye-bye.
That is fantastic.